So I have a huge problem with watching TV shows. All the time, people are like, "Oh, Ryan, you would really like this show." And I start it, and I do really like it. But after a couple episodes, after, I get through maybe 5 to 10 episodes, I'm out. I'm checked out. Boom, gone. It is very hard for me to continue to watch a show. Really, one of the only shows I've ever watched all of and boom, always into it is Stranger Things. Outer Banks, I really enjoy. I really like The Boys, but The Boys, I watched season one and I just can't get myself to start season two. It's kind of embarrassing, I know. Breaking Bad, considered one of the best shows in television history. Started watching Breaking Bad, got all the way till I'm at the start of season four now, and I just can't get myself to continue. I think my biggest problem is characters. In a TV show, I have to love the characters because I'm spending an exorbitant amount of time with them. In a movie, your time buy-in is about an hour and a half to about 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and a half if you're Martin Scorsese and it's Killers of the Flower Moon. If your film is super plot focused, it can still be completely carried by that. When it comes to TV shows, you have to have really strong characters. I have to start every episode wanting to see what that character does, and I have to either really like them or really hate them. I can't be indifferent. I think that's my problem with Breaking Bad, is I don't really like Walter White, but I don't hate him. I don't. I can't hate him. Same thing with Jesse. I don't love Jesse. All the guys I know who really like Breaking Bad really love Jesse, and I just don't. I don't hate Jesse either. The characters I really like are Saul Goodman and Hank Schrader, but they're not the main focus of the show. They're there pretty much every episode they're in it. The main focus is always Walter and Jesse, and I think it's why I have a problem continuing to watch it. I think that's why sitcoms work so well. For the longest time, really the only TV I ever watched was sitcoms. I'd watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. When I was younger, I watched Full House, Big Bang Theory, Seinfeld's my favorite show. That and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, easily my two favorites. And those shows I was able to watch dozens of episodes. I think I've seen every episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 3 times. And at that point, the amount of time I've spent with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is the equivalent that I could have watched multiple seasons of other more drama-focused shows. What does this have to do with Burn Notice? You clicked on the video to listen to me talk about Burn Notice. That's because a couple months back, I'd heard about the show Burn Notice before. All I knew is that it was about a spy in Miami. Didn't know how he was in Miami, didn't know any of the characters, didn't even realize that my dog, Bruce Campbell, was in the show. I started it back in September, and ever since then have been absolutely loving it. What makes this show work so much for me? Well, first, let me explain really the basic premise of what it's about. So in Burn Notice, Jeffrey Donovan, an actor that I think I've only ever seen in Wrath of Man, maybe as a little side character in that, and I didn't really care for him in that, absolutely kills it as the character Michael Weston, who is a spy that gets fired from being a spy, which means your identity's gone, you don't have any credit, you don't have any money, you're a nobody, you have nothing. And he's dumped in Miami, where he meets his ex-girlfriend, who also used to be a spy, Fiona, and his old pal, Sam Axe, played by Bruce Campbell, the legend. From there, you just get a great show where Michael Weston, former spy, starts helping out the people in Miami, while the overarching plot is about Michael Weston trying to figure out who burned him from the CIA. Why did he lose his job? He's never done anything wrong. He's always been a great spy. Why was he fired? And that is the plot of the whole show. And it sounds super basic because it's an episodic structure. Every episode is a new crime that Michael, Fiona, and Sam Axe take care of, with other reoccurring characters such as Michael's mother, who he has a very rocky relationship with, Michael's brother, who he also doesn't get along with very well, and other characters that sometimes show up, such as there's this guy in Miami that Michael knows really well who is this money launderer, and he'll pop up every couple episodes, and that's really fun. The longer you watch the show, the more of this crime world of Miami starts to emerge. And it's a very fun show in the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think that's the way that I've been able to watch so much of it. What I think really makes me love this series and why I've been able to burn through it so much, burn notice if you will, this is a very fun series. I'm a huge fan of Elmore Leonard crime novels, and the thing that I always like about Elmore Leonard crime novels is that they have this slight camp to them. The bad guys are always kind of goofy, dumb villains, and not in the way that you can't believe them. It's not Austin Powers. The bad guys are always some guys who always think they have the upper hand, always think they're the genius, when in reality, your hero character in an Elmore Leonard novel will outsmart them and will find a way to take them down. That's really the best comparison for Burn Notice. It reminds me a lot of when I read Elmore Leonard novels. And yes, I know that Justified, the TV show, is literally based off Elmore Leonard stories of Raylan Givens. I understand that, but this show gives me major Elmore Leonard vibes. Michael Weston is like a perfect Elmore Leonard protagonist. Sam Axe, Bruce Campbell's character, is like a perfect Elmore Leonard side character. Even Fiona, Michael Weston's ex-girlfriend slash current girlfriend, is also feels like a character from an Elmore Leonard novel. It very much reminds me of reading Elmore Leonard novels, and that's why I think I greatly enjoy it. It has that fun crime romp. I guess the best way to describe it is kind of like when you watch Indiana Jones. It is a great like adventure serial, but it has this level of like funness, and it's not afraid to be slightly campy, I guess, in a way. That's what Burn Notice really feels like. It is a crime show, but it's not taking itself seriously like Law and Order or True Detective or any of those shows. It's very fun. It really gives me also vibes of Uncharted, one of my favorite video game series. Nate and Sully from Uncharted are practically perfect mirrors to Michael Weston and Sam Axe and Burn Notice. They're very similar in the way they interact with each other and their character traits, along with the fact that Fiona and Burn Notice is very similar to Chloe from Uncharted. It's part of the reason I enjoyed this show so much, is that that's a very unique flavor you don't get in a lot of things. Uncharted and Elmore Leonard novels both, like I said, have a very distinct vibe that this show captures, and not a lot of shows really have this vibe anymore. If there's a similar show to Burn Notice now, somebody please let me know, because it feels like nowadays most of your crime shows are trying to be like Sherlock or True Detective in the way that they're very serious, focused crime. They're all like Fincher. They all want to be like David Fincher movies in TV format. Listen, I love David Fincher movies. Love them. But there is something very special about that Elmore Leonard crime novel vibe that Burn Notice has, and that Uncharted fun romp in like more of a serious situation. I was super excited to make this video, but as I'm filming, I'm realizing it's really hard to describe Burn Notice because it's such a vibe-focused show. So what makes Burn Notice's vibe so different? I think I've said the phrase, it doesn't take itself too seriously, at least 16 times already, so we're gonna try to stop doing that for right now. But beyond just the writing, when it comes to the filming of this show, it also feeds into the more unique nature. They do this weird thing in the editing where I'm like 95% sure the producers were like, hey Fred, we're in Miami, so let's make it like kind of sexy and weird. And he was like, gotcha. What that ends up being is like the characters will have a conversation and be talking about something important, and then when the scene ends, every once in a while you get this like weird editing. For example, it'll be like, I'll see you back at the house, run as fast as you can. And you're watching, you're like, whoa, what was that? But once again goes back to the fact that the show is not afraid to be a little goofy, because that's kind of a goofy thing to do. Very much reminds me a lot of when I watched Psych. I watched about 10 episodes of Psych a couple years back, and I really liked it because it's the same type of thing. The show was on USA Network the same time Psych was, and they have a lot of similarities in the fact that they're both episodic in nature, with Burn Notice having more of an overarching story with the whole who burned Michael West and who got him fired from the CIA. They both have some sitcom elements with their characters, and they're both very funny shows, even though they're not straight up sitcoms. I really like that. I always say the best comedies are the ones that feel real. As much as I love Happy Gilmore and other zany screwball comedies like Caddyshack, Step Brothers, stuff like that, there is something that's really special about when something's genuine and it feels like real interaction. And I think Psych and Burn Notice both have that. They're not in comedic situations. They're in a crime story. But that doesn't mean Sam Axe can't make a couple funny one-liners. And I like that. It reminds me a lot of when I read superhero comics and you read Spider-Man, and he'll bust out some genuinely funny things. And I think it just adds to the enjoyment of the show. It makes it not so dark and brooding. And going to watch something serious like Breaking Bad, you kind of get your mind ready, because it's going to be an intense experience. Whereas with Burn Notice, it's a lot more casual viewing experience, and I do like that. On top of the weird editing, I do think this show has some actually really nice shots at times. They definitely sent a team out and just said, hey, get some cool shots of Miami, which also feeds into the music, because the music, oh, it's excellent. They just got like some fun like Miami like dance club music, and they just put that with everything, and it's great. You'll just be watching the show, enjoying yourself, and it'll be a transition. All of a sudden you hear music like this. I mean, that's classic. That's banging. The whole setting of Miami just is also a very fun setting for a show like this. It's kind of like how Hawaii is so great in Magnum P.I. When you put a crime show in like a sexy location, it adds to the more like fun campiness of it. Whereas when something is like The Wire and it's set and it's in Boston, it's very serious, it's cold, it's rainy, it really makes the show feel a lot more intense and dark. Whereas Miami I mean, every show, the characters will be walking, talking about how, oh, they got to take this guy out who stole money from this old lady. And there's just like randomly women in bikinis and men in swim trunks running around in the background. It really makes the show feel a lot more fun and bright. The whole show just feels fun to watch. You turn it on, you're like, ah, yeah, let's see what they're up to this time. That type of thing you get usually from sitcoms. The whole, I can't wait to see what my favorite characters are doing, is usually something you see in shows like The Office and Friends and other popular sitcoms that have more overarching elements. And Burn Notice is able to do that even though it's a crime show, because the crimes really aren't the main part of the story. You're there to see what Michael Weston, Fiona, Sam Axe, and the other side characters are up to. Crimes are just really the plot. They're just a reason to watch these characters interact. I think that is what makes this show so special. A lot of shows that are crime focused, you're watching for the crimes. You're watching for the plot. And this show, and why I think it works for me so much, is because it's one of the few crime shows on television that isn't really about the crime at all. Because I'm not there to watch the mystery be solved. I'm not there to watch the crime go on, and then every new episode I have to be interested by the crime. I don't care what these characters are doing. I just want to see them interact, and I care about them, and I love watching them. I enjoy these characters so much, I enjoy them in this setting, that it makes really any plot interesting. Even the weaker plot episodes, I'm still into. Another thing that's technical that I should talk about is every once in a while they'll do this thing where they have two plots going on at once that are about to intersect. And so they do like this weird split screen. On the one screen, you'll have the characters talking and discussing something that is about to go down. And then on the other screen, you'll see somebody creating an action as the points are about to intersect. Hey, what's up? Dude, I was just talking about Burn Notice. Can you get out? Even when the shots aren't split screen, there are some genuinely really shot scenes in this show. I gotta give the directors some credit. They did not have to go this hard for this USA Network show from the early 2010s. Genuinely, anytime Michael Weston or any of the characters go into a nightclub, it's like the director's like, okay, time for me to get my bag. Because all of a sudden, the way they shoot things just goes up like 10 times. They do like really cool angles from behind the bar, choose really interesting ways to light the scene. And anytime they're in a nightclub in Miami, the show's quality just takes another step up because it adds to that like kind of grimy 80s crime novel Elmore Leonard feel. And then the shot selection becomes more interesting, and then you get more of the banging music, baby. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I have trouble watching most TV shows. There's some shows I really like, but I just have trouble finishing them and watching them all the way through. It's just hard for me to be really grabbed by a show and commit to it. And one of the few shows that was really able to grab me and that I love, and anytime they watch a new season, I immediately watch, is Outer Banks. It's definitely not a show known for excellent writing or anything, but I really love it. And it goes back to that idea of I really like the characters in Outer Banks. Even though season 2 I think is pretty terrible as far as plot-wise, I still really enjoyed watching it. And there's another show that has a fun setting that gives it a unique vibe. And while there are times in Outer Banks where it gets kind of serious, for the most part, it's always got that fun, hey, it's pretty much grown-up Goonies now on the beach vibe that you've learned to love from that show. And I think that's why that show really works for me and why it's one of my favorite shows and one of the few shows that really grabs me and I've watched all the way through. I think I've actually seen season 1 multiple times all the way through. I like it that much. It really just goes back to the beginning thing earlier with me and television. If the characters really grab me, I'll commit to the show and I don't really care what's going on. That's why I'm usually a guy who watches sitcoms. And I know I've kind of been jumping all over the place in this video, but I'm just trying to give you other examples of what elements I like so then you can apply those and understand why I like Burn Notice so much. And see if you identify the things I like, maybe you'll like Burn Notice too. Because chances are you haven't watched Burn Notice and you really need to. So at this point, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, Ryan, I'm in. You've sold me. I want to watch Burn Notice. I'm very intrigued. How do I watch it? I have excellent news for you. It is genuinely free. It is on Freevee for free with ads. The ads are usually 70 seconds long and it's like 4 ad breaks per episode. As someone who barely used streaming services up until a few years ago and mostly watched cable, it feels like a breeze to have only 70-second commercial breaks and only 4 times an episode. It's very light, very easy to watch. So it's on Freevee with ads. If you have Amazon Prime, Freevee is connected through there. You don't even have to make a new account with Freevee. If you don't have Amazon Prime, go to the Freevee app. I don't even know if it requires an account because it's free. I've never used their app, but Burn Notice is on there the entire series. And so, yeah, you should really watch it. I mean, you basically have no reason not to try it. As I mentioned before, most of the crimes are purely episodic with only a few that have like part 1, part 2 episodes. And then you have the overarching narrative of why Michael was even fired and got the burn notice in the first place. Burn notice to me is the perfect balance of the old school storytelling of a crime every episode to the more modern storytelling of an overarching narrative. Because usually the first 5 minutes of the episode and the last 5 minutes of the episode are both dedicated to the overarching narrative, whereas the middle 35 minutes are all like the crime of the week. So long story short, what makes Burn Notice special? Well, it's got a very unique vibe that you get because of the setting and the weird editing and filming choices they've made. It feels like a fun crime romp in the way of Elmore Leonard novel does, and kind of a similar vibe to the Uncharted video game series. It's got a cast of characters that I really care about and makes me want to watch every episode. And it's literally free. Like, it's free. All you have to do is watch a couple ads. I mean, it's boom, perfect. I strongly encourage everyone to watch at least the first episode and see what you think, because you might be missing out on an absolute classic. I love Burn Notice, and I made this video just to tell everybody about how damn good it is. So hopefully you give it a shot. All right, that's all I had to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.